is everything about earnest money in Minnesota.
I'm Amy Westerland, and I'm a licensed real estate agent in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Today we're going to be talking about Minnesota earnest money, and I'm with Keller Williams Premier. I've been an agent since 2006, so I've gone through many turns, ups and downs of the real estate world. And this video is not intended to solicit any clients that are already represented by another brokerage, but just for information. And all the information that's in this video is deemed reliable but not guaranteed. Depends on the year that you're actually watching it, because our forms change every year.
Earnest money is a deposit made from the buyer over to the seller, but the seller doesn't get to commingle it and just keep that money. The money needs to be in a trust account with the listing agent's brokerage, and it will be a credit towards the buyer at closing. And now if you're a FSBO selling your home on your own, the title company can hold the earnest money.
We're going to get into some of the legal jargon, and this is what's on the purchase agreement. So we're obviously going to be writing the amount of the earnest money and who is going to be holding it, because usually in Minnesota it is the listing agent, and their trust account will hold it until closing for the buyer. And as the buyer, you have 2 business days after the final acceptance of the contract to get your agent the earnest money. Now, in Minnesota right now we have trust funds, which is really convenient, and it's just a wire that goes from your account over to the listing agent's brokerage, and that's really simple. So then as the listing agent, I would have 3 business days to legally get your funds into an account. Now, a big misconception for buyers is the earnest money is an additional amount that goes to the seller. No, it is not. It is a credit to you. It goes on the HUD, which is your closing statement, and it's a credit towards that 3% that you're putting down, or whatever amount that is. It's a credit to you. So don't get that confused. Release of earnest money. And how does that happen? It happens when you buy your house. That's the best way. It can also be released with a written agreement between both parties of cancellation, and that would happen because of your contingencies and your negotiations could not be met. So that would be during your inspection period. Appraisal didn't come in for the value. HOA docs review. You have 10 days to review those documents. If you don't believe in all of the rules and you can't agree to some of those things in there, you can withdraw your offer. Septic or well inspection, maybe those fail, or any other contingencies that are written in there. But that's another way of releasing the earnest money. Or if the buyer doesn't actually financially qualify in the end, and credit is pulled right before closing. And if you've had a loss in job, or they can't verify some funds, they may not qualify anymore, and then the earnest money would be returned back to the buyer because financially they don't have the ability to purchase. Now there's some other ways. The receipt of an affidavit of a cancellation or a court order, and this happens when the buyer just poof disappears and nobody can reach them, or unfortunately if somebody actually passes away. And that does happen, but a court order actually has to release the purchase agreement and cancellation so the seller can get that listing back on the market. So you're asking, when does the seller actually get to keep the earnest money? Well, if the buyer defaults on the purchase agreement after the contingencies and they just change their mind, then you get to keep the earnest money. If there's a signed cancellation after contingencies or things that couldn't be negotiated, and both parties want to withdraw, you sign a cancellation, and that's when the funds are decided where they should go. 100% buyer, 100% seller, but that's when the agreement of where the money goes. Usually it is to the buyer. But it is rare that you do keep the money as a seller, but if they change their mind, it is all yours. Now, also, you want to be able to hire an expert real estate agent so you can get multiple offers through great marketing, phone calls to the neighborhood, open houses. You're building synergy around your listing, and you want multiple offers, so you have a couple buyers to pick from. And also vetting that lender. So if I'm working with
an offer from a buyer and I have no idea who the lender is and or the company, I vet them. You have to call them. You check in with them all the time, making sure that they're staying on top of the actual loan process, because that's the biggest deal, right? So how do I deliver the earnest money as a buyer? So most buyers nowadays will submit their earnest money through our local MLS secure link called Trust Funds. And it's great because it's a quick wire from your account as a buyer over to the listing agent's trust account. And that is the most secure, the fastest, and the best. So no more doing earnest money checks or personal checks in the mail, getting lost for a week or 10 days. Now that we have this system, there are usually no problems. But back in the day, I did have a situation for my listing, and the agent on the other side told their buyers to mail it to us, and the check got lost. Those buyers were going to be out all that money because the bank actually won't cash that check or refund them for 90 days. So that really turned into a scary situation, but we found the check and we were able to close on time. So it is best to use the typical in Minnesota. So most listing agents will require the earnest money to be at least 1%. Now, if you're in multiple offers, I always say, let's bring that up a little bit and be in more of a standing position with that seller, because if you have 2 or 3 of the same offers within a few $1,000s, but my buyer is bringing $5,000-$10,000 to the table for their earnest money, and remember, that's a credit to you towards your loan, the sellers feel more secure that the buyers are just not going to change their mind. So I always encourage that a little bit, to be higher and more competitive in multiple offers. And also for a VA loan, they don't require any money down, but usually that would be about $1,000 for earnest money. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to subscribe to other real estate topics,